Hare Krishna everyone, welcome back to Shravanam Diaries podcast. I'm your host Sulalita Devidasi and we're continuing to read teachings of Lord Caitanya by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is chapter number 19, further talks with Prakashananda. Sadananda Yogindra, one of the greatest Mayavadi acharyas, has written in his book Vedanta Sara, quote, "The absolute truth of eternity, knowledge and bliss is Brahman. Ignorance and all products of ignorance are non-Brahman. All products of the three modes of material nature are covered by ignorance, and all are different from the supreme cause and effect. This ignorance is manifested in a collective and individual sense. Collective ignorance is called Vishuddha Sattva Pradhan. When that Vishuddha Sattva Pradhan is manifested within the ignorance of material nature, it is called the Lord. And the Lord manifests all kinds of ignorance. Therefore, he is known as Sarvagya." Unquote. Thus, according to Mayavada philosophy, the Lord is a product of this material nature, and the living entity is in the lowest stage of ignorance. That is the sum and substance of Mayavada philosophy, which we do not agree with, may I remind my dear listeners. If, however, we accept the import of the Upanishads directly, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a person with unlimited potency. For example, in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, it is stated, quote, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of everything, and He has multiple potencies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to the cosmic manifestation. He is the origin of all religion, the Supreme Deliverer, and the possessor of all opulences. I understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be just like the sun, profusely distributing his energies while situated beyond the cloud of this material cosmic manifestation. He is the Master of Masters, and He is the Supreme of the Supremes. He is known as the greatest Lord, the Personality of Godhead. His multiple potencies are variously distributed." Unquote. Also, the Rig Veda 1.22.20 states that Vishnu is the Supreme and that saintly persons are always anxious to see his lotus feet. And in the Aitareya Upanishad, it is stated that the cosmic manifestation came about when the Lord glanced over material nature. 1.1.1 and 2. This is confirmed by the Prashna Upanishad 6.3. The negative descriptions of the Lord which occur in the Vedic literature, such as Apani Pada, the Lord has no hands or feet, indicate that the Lord has no material body and no material form, but He does have His spiritual, transcendental body and His transcendental form. Because the Mayavadi philosophers misunderstand His transcendental nature, they explain it as impersonal. The Lord's name, form, qualities, entourage, and above all, abode are all in the transcendental world. How can he be a transformation of this material nature? Everything connected with the Supreme Lord is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In effect, Shankaracharya preached Mayavada philosophy to bewilder a certain type of atheist. Actually, he never considered the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, to be impersonal, without body or form. It is best for intelligent persons to avoid lectures on Mayavada philosophy. We should understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is not impersonal. He is a transcendental person, and the basic principle of the cosmic manifestation is his energy. Mayavada philosophy cannot trace the energy of the Supreme Lord back to its source, but all Vedic literatures give evidence of the Supreme Lord's various energetic manifestations. Vishnu is not a product of material nature, but material nature is a product of Vishnu's potency. The Mayavadi philosophers understand Vishnu to be a product of material nature. But if Vishnu is a product of material nature, he can only be counted among the demigods. One who considers Vishnu to be a demigod is certainly mistaken and misled. How this is so is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 7.13 to 14. Quote, "Deluded by the three modes of material nature, the whole world does not know me, who am above the material nature and inexhaustible. My material nature is so powerful that it is very difficult to surpass its spell, even for the greatest scholar. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it." Daivihesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mam eva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. It's this verse. Material nature is so powerful, it's difficult to surpass its spell. Now, chapter 20, the goal of Vedanta study. It is concluded that Lord Kṛṣṇa, or Vishnu, is not of this material world. He belongs to the spiritual world. One who considers him to be a demigod of the material world is a great offender and blasphemer. Lord Vishnu is not subject to perception by material senses, nor can he be realized by mental speculation. Unlike in the material world, where there is always a difference between the body and soul, there is no difference between the body and soul of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Material things are enjoyed by the living entities because the living entities are superior in quality, whereas material nature is inferior. Thus, the superior nature, the living entities, can enjoy the inferior nature, matter. Because Lord Vishnu is in no way touched by matter, he has no tendency to enjoy material nature the way the living entities do. The living entities cannot attain knowledge of Vishnu by enjoying their habits of mental speculation. The infinitesimal living entities are not the enjoyers of Vishnu, but they are enjoyed by Vishnu. Only the greatest offender thinks that Vishnu is enjoyed. The greatest blasphemy is to consider Vishnu and the living entity on the same level. The Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, is compared to a blazing fire, and the innumerable living entities are compared to sparks emanating from that fire. Although both the Supreme Lord and the living entities are qualitatively fire, there is yet a distinction. Vishnu, the Supreme, is infinite, whereas the living entities, which are but sparks, are infinitesimal. The infinitesimal living entities are emanation from the original infinite spirit. In their constitutional position as infinitesimal spirits, there is no trace of matter. The living entities are not as great as Narayana, Vishnu, who is beyond this material creation. Even Shankaracharya accepts Narayana to be beyond the material creation. Since neither Vishnu nor the living entity are of the material creation, someone may inquire, why were the small particles of spirit created at all? The answer is that the Supreme Absolute Truth is complete in His perfection when He is both infinite and infinitesimal. If He were simply infinite but not infinitesimal, He would not be perfect. The infinite portion is the Vishnu Tattva, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the infinitesimal portion is the living entity. Due to the infinite desires of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual world exists. Infinite desires of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual world exists, and due to the infinitesimal desires of the living entity, the material world exists. When the infinitesimal living entities are engaged in trying to fulfill their infinitesimal desires for material enjoyment, they are called Jiva Tattva, Jiva Shakti. But when they are dovetailed with the infinite, they are called liberated souls. Jiva Shakti, when engaged in material enjoyment, and liberated souls when dovetailed with the infinite. There is no need to ask, therefore, why God created the infinitesimal portions. They are simply the complementary side of the Supreme. Nice. It is doubtlessly essential for the infinite to have infinitesimal portions, which are inseparable parts and parcels of the Supreme Soul. Because the living entities are infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme, there is a reciprocation of feelings between the infinite and the infinitesimal. Had there been no infinitesimal living entities, the Supreme Lord would have been inactive, and there would be no variegatedness in spiritual life. There would be no meaning to a king if there were no subjects, and there would be no meaning to the Supreme Lord if there were no infinitesimal living entities. How can there be meaning to the word Lord if there is no one to rule? The conclusion is that the living entities are expansions of the energy of the Supreme Lord, and that the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, is the energetic. Jai. We are going to stop here for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. The link to this book is in the description. Please check out our website shravanamdiaries.com, and we shall see you next time. Hare Krishna.